Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel, and today I'm going to be looking at 2001 A Space Odyssey, the Marvel Treasury edition from 1976, written and drawn by Jack Kirby. This is one of my favorite comic artifacts that has ever existed. I absolutely adore this book, and it's really interesting because before I ever even read a comic book in my life, I was in love with 2001: A Space Odyssey, the movie. I love the movie. To this day, it remains probably my favorite movie of all time. And I eventually got into comic books years later, and even then, it took me a few more years to discover the classics of Jack Kirby. And then I found out that he actually drew an official adaptation of the movie. And I eventually, it took many years, but I got a hold of it, and it's in beautiful condition, and it's better than I could have ever anticipated. It's such a fantastic book, and you'll notice that I'm a little zoomed out here because this is oversized. If you don't know what a Treasury edition is, this is a regular comic for comparison, so it is big and blown up, which is exactly as Jack Kirby's artwork should be viewed, because his stuff is so freaking fun, and it just works so well on a large scale. So we're gonna go through this. I'll narrate the story as best I can, but really I can go through this completely silently, and we can just flip pages, and you'll see why I love this book, because the images inside are just stunning. Starting with the cover, where we get like a little bit of a hodgepodge of everything we're going to see inside. It gives us a little taste. Also, the back cover, even better. I actually like the back cover more. It's really dynamic with all the different colors and compositions. But here we go. We'll flip this over, and we'll get started now. So, opening to the first page. First are our credits, written, drawn, and edited by Jack Kirby, inked by Frank Giacoia, and special shout-out colored by Marie Severin and Jack Kirby. Marie Severin is one of the greatest colorists to ever do it, and also very interesting that Jack had the ability to have his own input on the coloring, which is really, really cool, and I think that really shows here, because this is very much, to me, like a masterpiece type book. It's that good. So it opens up with a splash page of the monolith, the famous 2001 monolith, and some astronauts at its base. But this is just to whet our appetites. Really, the story begins on the next page. 4 million years ago in Africa, with these apes, the apes that are in the desert, that are trying to fight for survival. They are hunted by other animals, and they are struggling. It's a battle every day to get out alive, to find food, to find water. Love this extreme close-up of this very concerned ape's face, as he's finding his tribesmen dead. They're sulking back to their cave for shelter. Really solid start. Just to set the scene, we get some warring ape factions. They're warring over this watering hole. Great dynamic, excited movements by these apes. And we could see the wariness as this one is taking a drink from the stream, keeping his eyes out across to make sure that nobody's coming to take their spot at the watering hole. Jack Kirby gives us a nice picture of just every animal he can think of. It's like, if there's an animal that would live in the desert, or that live in Africa at this time, here they are. Here's some elephants, here's some ostriches, here's a bird, zebra, just anything. Puts it out there. Kirby's so great at that, of just like filling a panel with interesting stuff to look at. This lion, or this panther, or whatever it's supposed to be here, is a really good example of how Kirby just his anatomy is wonky. His anatomy is weird. I don't know that he ever studied an anatomy book in his life, but it always like works because where he places his marks, you get it. Like you get that this circle here is the top of the shoulder for this lion's haunch. You get that these are kind of like his ribs. It all makes sense, even though it looks really slapdash and out of place. It works. It all works. And the same thing for like the patterns of the fur, where you can see the musculature that's kind of curving. He knows where to put those marks. And inker Frank Giacoa does a really good job of being faithful to that here, I think. So our main ape here, who we call Moonwatcher, he escapes the attack and he's back in his cave at night. And there is this powerful moment here, which is emphasized by the trademark Kirby crackle of the dots that express extreme energy going on. And when they wake up in the morning, there is a giant black monolith outside their cave, and in a really great splash page, I almost wish this wasn't here. I don't even think you need it. They're all just worshiping, trying to touch this monolith, and as the narration implies, they're communicating with the infinite. And the monolith is changing them. It's doing something to them. Which is a notable difference from this in the movie, because the movie is very much open to interpretation. Stanley Kubrick didn't want to answer any questions outright in his movie, but Kirby is using the movie and also the novel by Arthur C. Clarke and also an earlier version of the movie script to fill in some of these narrative bubbles. So I recommend, if you can get a copy of this on your own, picking it up and reading it yourself, because you're missing a lot of just Kirby interpreting that extra narrative writing. And while Kirby isn't the best writer, I do think he does a really good job of filling in these blanks here. So the apes commune with the monolith, and the next day they are suddenly a bit more aggressive, and what do you know? They start using weapons. This one grabs a rock. And how many times in his life has Jack Kirby drawn like this exact panel of a character who's thrown an object that is extremely foreshortened? This exact like pose, this exact face in the corner. I mean, it's one of those panels that just like always works, and Kirby goes to it a time and again. So they're using these weapons to kind of take charge. They no longer are being pushed around by the other animals. They're now using weapons to leverage boulders off of cliffs to crush this lion, that's been tormenting them. And when they go to the watering hole and they see their rival gang, the Jets to their sharks, they pick up a bone and they crack it right over this guy's head and kills him. That's the first blunt force trauma murder. And again, great use, great Murray Severin Jack Kirby coloring here. It's the first real red I think we've gotten so far. If I go flip back, yeah, there's been no red up to this point, and then that moment of impact, boom, you get that burst of red. Really effective. And we get Kirby's rendition of the famous transition of the bone being flung into the air, entering the stratosphere, and turning into a spaceship. So that is our leap to the year 2001. And on this page, we do have a photostat. We'll see this technique used a few times throughout here. And I think they're actually just using photos of the models from the movie, because this very much is an iconic spaceship design. So I think they just had access to those set photos, and they just kind of reuse them here. But it's 4 million years in the future. It is 2001, the distant future, and this is part 2 of the movie. If you've seen the movie, you know that it's divided into 4 parts. Yeah, and we've got Floyd here, who's on his way to the moon to investigate some strange goings on. We get this sequence, another one famous from the movie, of the flight attendant who enters the circular hallway, walks up and around so that she can get through this door, which is upside down where Dr. Floyd is. Um, so really cool. I love that Kirby's able to recreate a lot of the same sets that were from the Kubrick movie. It's really a match. It's a match made in heaven. Kirby is so enmeshed in that pop art, and I do think that Kubrick was also very much influenced by pop art. With these kind of designs, you also see it in A Clockwork Orange. They really, it's a perfect marriage. I love seeing two of my favorite creators kind of take on the same story. And Floyd shaking some hands, talking to some people about what's going on. There's been weird, there's been something going on around Clavius base on the moon, and they're heading over there. Takes off in this spaceship. I love this panel. Love that spaceship design. We get more photostat here as his ship approaches the moon. And they land, get the landing sequence depicted here. And the spacesuits from the movie are recreated pretty faithfully recreation here. Also, this sequence also basically taken directly from the movie itself. I don't have too much to say in terms of like plot for this section, because it is just this doctor going to the moon to investigate something weird that's going on. It's not the most visually exciting portion of this book either, but it's all still Kirby. So like a panel like this is actually really awesome because it's Kirby tech. It's Kirby tech in the background. It's an interesting perspective. It's him just playing around with different colors. So it's a lot of fun, even if it's not the most interesting portion of the book. I do think that this part is a lot of fun. Anytime he gets to draw like a base and all these, these reflective surfaces, the way that Kirby renders that stuff is really awesome. And then we do get an awesome spread here. I mean, this splash page obviously stands out and is very impressive. But I love Kirby reaction shots. So these guys are seeing footage of what they're there to investigate on the moon, and we're getting all these different types of people and different hairstyles, different faces, different everything looking on. And again, I mean, this is so cool. This is so awesome. I mean, I'm just going to linger here. I just let you appreciate that for a moment, because that's just great. And it gets even better because when we turn the page, we have a full page spread of them going to this base on the moon. Honestly, it's awe-inspiring that like he's able to draw this. It's beautiful. What can I say that improves it? Nothing. So fantastic. Kirby's adaptation of a famous shot from the movie where they've dug up what's going on here is that they've dug up the monolith on the moon. They found a monolith from 4 million years ago that we saw. They don't know what it is, so they're going to investigate. They're going down to take a look, and another amazing splash page of Dr. Haywood Floyd looking at it, and great just background, just the sky above him. And as they gather for a group photo in front of the monolith, it lets out a piercing whine, and the men start reaching towards it the same way that the apes did 4 million years ago. And again, it's communicated in the narrative, the narration. It's time for man's next great adventure. It's time to take the step beyond all the things that bind man to smallness, as another group had done long ago. Floyd and his men cling to the monolith and listen. So it's imparting some information on them, on some wisdom. So we get another time jump after that, and We see a spaceship that's encroaching into our view. We get glimpses of it as it passes through, and then we get the full spread shot of it. Whew, beautiful. Beautiful. See, earlier in his career, I would say that Steve Ditko was a lot better than Jack Kirby at like the cosmic stuff. But as Kirby got older and got into the 70s, I think he improved his cosmic stuff considerably, because this is fantastic. I mean, look at that. The shadows are all right. Like, I mean, just where to highlight. Uh, it's great. It's great. So we've got the Jupiter expedition, where these men are being sent out to Jupiter. Just they've been told that they're on a journey to just collect information, collect data, and this is astronauts Dave Bowman and Frank Poole, if I remember the names correctly. Yeah, Frank Poole and Dave Bowman. Awesome. This is I can't keep doing that. I know it's probably so boring to just hear me make the same noises and exclamations over and over again, but just look at how good this is. Look at how awesome and how perfect that Kirby is for this type of composition. It's so great. And this is the famous sequence of the film featuring the supercomputer, the HAL 9000. And what our astronauts here are doing is they think that there's something else going on with their mission that they haven't been told about. They're a little suspicious, and they go to their computer, which is supposed to obey them completely, give them honest, direct answers, and just try to get from the computer what's really going on. And so, they try to ask if there's anything about the mission that they weren't told, and HAL kind of deflects. And, I'm sorry, Frank, but I don't think I can answer that question without knowing everything that all of you know. And so they switch over to a true or false sequence where they ask him true or false questions of, our transit time is 257 days. Is that true? Our mission profile calls for Discovery 1 going to Jupiter. Is that true? And he's answering that's true to everything. And that's kind of the end of that sequence. But Frank is unconvinced. Frank Poole is unconvinced. We do get the sunbathing sequence from the movie, which I think is really funny that would be included. But there are still suspicions abounding here, and Frank pulls Dave into these pods where Hal can't hear them, to basically say he's concerned about Hal because he caught Hal in a lie, because Hal lied about, or was wrong about a part failing. So that revelation is here in this big square panel of Frank's face, but they don't realize that Hal is reading their lips. So they're saying that Hal is compromised, and that makes Hal a bit nervous. So while Frank is out on a spacewalk, he is attacked by his pod, which suddenly comes to life, and he's flung off into outer space. This is a great sequence here of the pod approaching, where it's got its arms upright, and then they disengage and they reach out towards him. So you can kind of see that something weird's going on here. He asks who activated these mechanical arms. Great view from the pod's perspective of the arms reaching out towards him. It's very ominous. And we get this panic as it goes closer and closer in on his face as he's getting attacked, and then disengages and he's flung off into space. And we get that reflected here, where against this Kirby Crackle cosmos, his image is getting smaller and smaller. So Dave suits up and he heads out to try to rescue Frank. He's trying to save his friend, or his coworker rather. And we get more photostat imagery here as he's trying to reach him before it's too late. And they get back Actually, no. It is too late. I should say he gets back. He's not able to reach Frank, so he heads back to the ship, and he's asking Hal to let him back inside, and Hal won't do it. And this is it's not as iconic as the "I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave" from the movie, but it's still a really fantastic sequence. These colors by Severin and Kirby are just so interesting. The heavy leaning on purple and orange and red against the black and blue of space. It's great choice, just absolutely fantastic choice. Um, Dave is able to get himself back into the ship using his own wherewithal, and he explodes back into the ship using like explosive decompression, basically, where he's shot back out. So we get this great panel of him flying into the airlock. Uh, awesome dynamic pose. This is such a top down pose that's in free fall. Super interesting, very interesting pose, and executed really well by Kirby. So Dave's back inside. He finds that the rest of the crew, which was in hibernation, has also been killed. So there's no disguising it now. Hal is sinister. Hal's hiding something, and so Dave's going to go ahead and disconnect him. And he enters his central brain, where all of his chips are and his memory and whatever. So he's floating around in there. Again, great use of changing the color scheme to let us know that the location has changed by Severin and Kirby. And he starts pulling out these data banks, and Hal is getting weaker and weaker. He's losing his intelligence, and he's just kind of spouting out childish information as Dave floats inside his brain. And he even starts singing the Daisy song from the movie. So they kept that in there, which is really neat. And now Dave has to get out. He realizes that he's basically, a dead man floating here because he's got no life support. No one's coming to get him. So he gets himself to his pod again and just heads off into space. And as he heads out there, he sees something that should not be there. We get this great push in on his gigantic eyeball, and he sees the monolith that we've encountered before inside that great cosmic background. And as he approaches it, the monolith kind of starts to open or react or something. So he's about to have that experience that the apes may have gone through 4 million years ago. It even says in the narration that the monolith has been circling Jupiter for 2 million years, waiting to activate to allow an ancient experiment to reach its climax. Again, this is not information you get from the movie. This is Kirby pulling from the book and the script, an old script. So Dave Bowman's about to go on a really big trip, the trippiest sequence in the movie. Let's see how Kirby pulls that off. Go into it here, and we see that we are embracing the crazy colors again from the sequence of him taking this journey through the stars. As the monolith opens for him and activates, we get an explosion of green and yellow and pink, and we can see it reflected on his face. It's like it's fear, it's wonder, it's awe. And I love this panel where just the window of it's only the window of his spacesuit left, and it's just colors radiating outward. This is a fantastic page. This is pop art. Just right, you can cut this out, put it in a frame, sell this as pop art. Honestly, this is Andy Warhol. This is exactly what that movement was all about. This is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous stuff. And oh, speechless. I'm speechless. I'm honestly tearing up a little bit. I love it. I love it so much. It's just the variation of colors, the grandeur of it, the scale of we've got his spaceship here, and just the size, and the fact that this is a treasury. That's the thing. You can't. There's a reason they did this as a treasury. If this was just a regular comic book size, you lose this scale. This is such a perfect way to read this and experience this. I wouldn't have it any other way. We get another spread on the next page of this. I get this sense of just like cracking and erosion in actual space itself. That's what I kind of take from this. God, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Also, happy Pride Month, folks. Love that rainbow there. I just noticed that. And another one here. Ugh. And I don't know how much of it is Marie Severin and how much of it is Kirby, but the duo of them, they knew exactly what colors to pick. The perfect choices. This is another one that you could just frame. I mean, it works perfectly as it is. And then it's offset because now Dave has reached the end of his trip and he ends up in this weird room that's just completely muted color palette. And it's here that he essentially spends the rest of his life. As he walks through here, he ages rapidly, or we see it. We see great expanses of time covered very quickly. Is how I should say that, because I think that's open to interpretation, particularly from the film. But he's living solitarily, right? Yeah, that's probably a word. In this room, and he's an old man. He's in bed, and as he's about to die, the monolith stands in front of him once more. He reaches his hand out to it, and we get that activation again. An extreme flash of light, and a veil goes over Dave Bowman's face. And the next time we see it, he's essentially reborn as the Star Child. And here he is. We get, starting from far away, and we get the zoom in of our new Dave Bowman ascended to a new form of being, headed back to his home planet of Earth. And that's the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Wow. I love this book so much. If I didn't make that clear, it's also got a retrospective here in the back of it, by David Anthony Kraft about the film production of 2001, and we do get a Jack Kirby biography here, or a little blurb about him, as well as the credits to the movie itself. But yeah, that is the end. This is a tough book to find. I don't think they've ever reprinted it in this format. This was, I don't know also how popular this was. I know that it did spark an actual ongoing monthly comic for Marvel, called 2001: A Space Odyssey by Jack Kirby. But it goes off from the actual movie. It's I think the first issue of that kind of covers what the movie covers, and then after that, it's just new storylines. I've only read a couple of those. They're pretty good, but this to me is a desert island comic. If I had to choose, 5 books to bring with me to a desert island, this is coming with me. So I absolutely love this. If you could find a copy, it's not super cheap, secondhand, but that's the way you got to go to get it, and it's worth it. It is so very worth it. So that's it. If you have been lucky enough to have a copy of this and read it yourself, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. Let me know if I missed anything that you like. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.